Namaste everyone, and thank you for joining in this class. So this is supposed to be the seventh installation of the ongoing Vedic Astrology Foundation basic course, and we have already covered 6 classes till now. And in the last class, we took a deep dive into the world of planets and the houses. And today we'll be going further down. Okay, we'll be going further deeper into the other secrets of Vedic astrology. All right. Let's start the class with our Shanti mantra from the Upanishads. Okay. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunakatu Sahaviryankara Vavahai Tejasvinadadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All right. So last time we discussed, what the, we discussed about the relationship between planets, how they are, how they are friends, how they are, how they are enemies, and things like that. Okay. So today we'll just look at a few terms which are in which are very, very popular, which you will actually need while predicting. And the first term that we'll look at is the aspect part of it. Okay. So aspects are, aspects represent the desire of the planet. Okay. Ichcha shakti. Okay. Aspect means an ichcha shakti. And all planets from their natal position, they will fully aspect the seventh house from them or from itself. And wherever the planets cast their aspect, they will exert their influence on the houses and also on the planets. Okay, for example, say Mars is placed in the 7th house. From there, 7 houses from the 7th house is the 1st house. So Mars is giving its full aspect on the 1st house. Okay. And suppose, there is a planet, say there is Sun in the 1st house. In that case, Mars is also influencing the Sun. Similarly, from the 1st house, the Sun is directly aspecting Mars. Okay. So in a way, both the planets are influencing each other. So such an aspect is known as an opposition because they are directly opposite to each other. Okay. And, all the planets will have the 7th aspect. Okay. All the planets will have their 7th aspect. Except Ketu. I don't believe that Ketu has its aspects because, Ketu is headless. It does not have eyes to see. Okay. And Ketu also represents, in Jaimini astrology, Ketu represents moksha karaka. Okay. The only job of Ketu is to give you moksha. That is what Gemini tells us. All right. And because, because moksha has, once you are after moksha, that is, you become desireless. If you want moksha, you become desireless. So Ketu cannot aspect, Ketu does not have any aspects. So that is my firm belief. Other astrologers will say that, Ketu does aspect, just like Rahu has aspects, even Ketu has aspects. But since Ketu is moksha karaka, Ketu cannot aspect. Okay. And then the outer planets, all right, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, they have been given some special aspects. All right. So, Mars will, apart from the 7th aspect, Mars will also aspect the 4th house and the 8th house from itself. Similarly, Jupiter will aspect the 5th house and the 9th house from itself. And Saturn will aspect the 3rd house and the 10th house from itself. Okay. And these special aspects, they are, they are not full aspects. Okay. Whenever Saturn is aspecting the 3rd house and the 10th house from itself, it means it is giving only 25%, the glance is only 25%. Okay. For Jupiter, who aspects the 5th and the 9th house from itself, the glance is only 50%. Okay. And Mars, who aspects the 4th and the 8th house from itself, apart from the 7th house, that aspect is 75%. Okay. And now these special aspects have some special meanings as well. Okay. So I'll be making a video on the special aspects of these planets. All right. For example, just to give you an example, suppose the 9th aspect of Jupiter. Okay, the 9th aspect of Jupiter, it can it can cause a lot of turmoil in the life of a native. Okay, the 9th aspect from Jupiter, can cause a lot of turmoil in the life of a native. All right, just a minute. Yes, Anuradhaji, I can hear you.
Sir, I wanted to ask you about this percentage of aspect that you said. Does it mean like in strength it is 75%,
Yeah,
or do
yeah,
you mean
it is.
coverage? Like
It is an
only.
it is in strength.
So if it's an exalted planet, it will be 75%, so lesser than what we would expect. Like
Yeah, because as I said, all the planets will aspect the, will give 100% power, will give 100% power to the seventh house from itself. But the other aspects, they become reduced in strength. That's what I was meaning. Okay, so anyways, as I was saying, the ninth aspect of Jupiter, this aspect is, is very, it will create a very turmoilish situation in the life of a native. Okay, so suppose that ninth aspect of Jupiter is falling on some other planet. Okay, suppose it is falling on a, it is falling on a benefic planet like Venus. In that case, what happens is the, the turmoil will be resolvable to some extent. Okay, but suppose the ninth aspect of Jupiter is falling on a planet like Rahu or Saturn. In that case, the turmoil would actually cause a lot of changes in the native. Okay, because that can really accelerate unwanted, or a few, let's say, a few very difficult circumstances in how the native encounters his daily life. Okay, similarly, the fourth aspect of Mars is where your protection will come from. Okay, so suppose Mars is aspecting the 10th house. For example, Mars is aspecting the 10th house. In that case, no one can actually, if you land up in a job, then no one will be able to indulge in office politics against you, because Mars is always protecting that place. Okay, so you'll be very, you'll be very proactive in protecting the fourth house from Mars. Okay, or rather, Mars is showering its blessings on the fourth house from itself. Okay, so there are other meanings as well. I'll not go into the deeper meanings of this thing because it'll take up a lot of time. What I'll do rather is that I'll make a video on on planets having special aspects. Okay, and I'll make a video on K2 as well. Okay, because just me saying that K2 does not have any aspects does not make any sense. Okay, but then there are hundreds of others who will say that K2 has aspects, and I'll make a video on K2 as well, and what K2's aspects mean for all of us. Okay, and then there is this phenomenon which is known as combustion. Okay, so when planets are very, very close to the sun, they lose their strength and vitality, and they are said to be combust. Okay, so a combust planet, it loses its capacity to do good, and it produces adverse results. Okay, for example, it will depend on which lord is combust. Okay, for example, suppose the fourth lord is combust. In that case, the the health of the native's mother may suffer. Okay, or maybe the native will never be able to get his own property, or maybe the native will never be able to own her own vehicle. Okay, that is how combustion works. Suppose the first lord is combust. In that case, the decision making ability of the native will go for a toss, because the first house, or the lagnesh, it represents our decision making ability. Okay, suppose the ninth lord is combust. In that case, the bhagya of the native will be impacted a lot. All right, so depending upon the house lordships, okay, depending upon how depending upon which lord is combust, results will be different. Okay, now people may ask, what if the eighth lord is combust? What if the lord of a negative house is combust? Okay, for example, the sixth lord. What if the sixth lord is combust? Right? So in that case, of course, enemies will be weak, but the native will also suffer from a weak immune system, because the sixth lord also represents your immunity. Okay, so if the sixth lord is weak, your immunity becomes weak. Okay, then suppose the eighth lord is combust, what happens in that case? The native will not have so many sudden events in his or her life, but then the native will not be able to inherit much from his ancestors, okay, from his parents, or from ancestral property, because eighth lord also represents inheritance. Okay, but if the 12th lord is combust, in that case, the native may not have unwanted expenses, because 12th lord is the vyaya sthana. The 12th house is the vyaya sthana, the house of expenses. So if the if the 12th lord is combust, then the native may not have unwanted expenses, but then the native may also lose his or her ability to sleep, because the 12th house is the house of sleeping. Okay, so you have to be very, very careful in judging what combustion is, how combustion is happening, and how it is impacting the native. All right, and then planets also become retrograde. Okay, when during their motion they appear to be moving in a reverse direction. Now planets cannot change their spin. Okay, planets cannot change the orbital path, but at a certain point of time during their motion, they will appear to be moving in a reverse direction, and that is known as retrogression. The Sanskrit word for retrogression is vakri. Okay, and every time there is a planet that is retrograde, it will actually, retrograde has both good effects as well as bad effects. Okay, but then the main feature of retrogression is that the planet which is retrograde will always behave in a very unusual or a very peculiar manner. Okay, it will do something that it is not supposed to do. Okay, for example, say the second lord is retrograde and is sitting in the 12th house. All right, so second lord sitting in the 12th house is a combination for poverty. Okay, if second lord goes into the 12th house, Parashara says that it is a combination for poverty. That means the planet will take away the money of the native. Okay, or the native will not have that much of income, or the native will not have that much of wealth. But because in a condition, or under, if the second lord is vakri and then sitting in the 12th house, then what it will do is that it will end up giving a lot of money to the native. Okay, it will always, retrograde means crooked. Okay, it is actually behaving in a very opposite way of what it is tend to give. Okay, it will behave in a very opposite way of how it is meant to behave. That is the meaning of retrogression. For example, say, the seventh lord is retrograde. For example, the seventh lord is retrograde. Then what happens is that, once your marriage is fixed, all of a sudden the marriage will, maybe the marriage will break up. Okay, the marriage can break. The marriage has not yet happened, but the marriage might be called off, and then all of a sudden you might again get a proposal from the same person to marry you again. Okay, so now Saturn is retrograding. Okay, Saturn is again going back into Capricorn. So people who will be born during this time will have a retrograde Saturn in their horoscope. Okay, and the other principle to remember is that a benefic planet, if retrograde, becomes more benefic. Okay, for example, Jupiter is the biggest benefic, and if Jupiter is retrograde, it will become more benefic in the chart. And a malefic planet which is retrograde, that becomes more malefic. For example, Saturn is a malefic planet, but if it is retrograde, it will become more malefic. Okay, and the other thing is that, out of all the navagrahas, the sun and the moon are never retrograde. Okay, they will never be retrograde, because they are our universal parents. The sun is the father, the moon is the mother. So the sun and moon will never be retrograde. But Rahu and Ketu will always be retrograde. Okay, because they are the demons of in a Vedic astrology. They are always moving in a backward direction. Okay, can Rahu and Ketu be direct? Yes, they can be under certain conditions. Okay, and again, as I said, retrogression is a huge phenomenon. If we start covering retrograde, even 2 to 3 classes will not be in retrogression. Even 2 to 3 classes will not be enough. So what we will do is that we will have some separate sessions, maybe on Saturdays, on combustion and retrogression and the aspects as well. Okay, so that will, will the aspect be reversed to no, see, this is a good question that you have asked, Anuradha. A retrograde does not mean, looking backward. Okay, retrogression does not mean that I'm looking backward. Retrogression means I'm moving backward. I'm just moving backward. So even if I'm moving backward, my eyes will still see the same things. Okay, aspects will be reversed only if the retrogression, if the planet is looking backward. Retrogression does not mean looking backward, it means moving backwards. Okay, so I'm just, imagine that I'm moving, you are moving, you are just seated on a chair and you're just moving backward. In that case, your front will still be the same. Okay, and there is a misconception that retrograde planets will give results from the previous house. That is a big misconception. It does not happen in all cases. There are certain degrees. Okay, there are certain degrees as to when retrograde planets will give results from the previous house. For example, say suppose there is a retrograde Jupiter sitting in the 10th house, people will say that it will also give results of the 9th house. No, it will not give unless and until Jupiter is retrograde within certain degrees. Okay, so these are misconceptions that need to be cleared. Okay, and generally what happens is in medical astrology also retrograde planet will find its use. Okay, and retrograde, suppose there is a prashna. Okay, suppose you are casting a prashna for health. Suppose someone is trying to undergo an operation and a prashna is being cast for his or her health, and in that case the ascendant or the planet in question is retrograde. In that case, you can predict that the that the operation will not be successful or something might happen in the operation table. Okay, so this was this happened with with a client of mine around September last year. So she had come for this for this consultation, and she was about to go for an operation, which was a simple operation for gallbladder. And in that case, I could see that Saturn was was retrograde. Okay, and I said that you should not, at least you should delay this operation, or maybe you should be you should have your health insurance covered. You should have a good health insurance, because this operation does not seem to be does not seem to be going this way. And she was very she was very offended by what I was saying. Okay, she thought that no, because this doctor is a very experienced doctor, I'm getting this operation done in Hyderabad and things like that. And then later on she went ahead. Okay, she went ahead, and what happened was that she was almost saved from the brink of death. Okay, the only good thing about about that was that, because although she was offended, she had actually done the remedies that I had suggested. Okay, so she was almost brought back from the brink of death, right? So retrogression is a it's a huge phenomenon, and it should not be ignored, right? So any questions still here? We'll go to the nature of the planets after this.
One question regarding Rahu's aspect. I've heard that Rahu has an aspect, but there are different books say different things. Do you have any, like, do you consider Rahu's aspect normally?
Yeah, Rahu will aspect it, because Rahu is the planet of desire. Okay, Rahu is the position of Rahu is the place which will give you motivation to wake up every morning and go to work. Wherever Rahu is sitting, that is the reason why you are working. Okay, that is the reason why you are working. So Rahu will obviously have aspects, and Rahu's aspects are the same as Jupiter's aspects. Okay, that means the
so 5th and 9th.
Yeah, the 5th, 7th, and 9th. Okay, but some South Indian astrologers, they consider the 3, 7, 11 aspects of Rahu, because
that's what I have heard, that 3, 7, 11, or I mean there are different people say different.
Yeah, because some South Indian astrologers, they consider Rahu to aspect the 3rd, 7th, and 11th houses from itself. But that is because if you reverse the aspect, just like you asked this question, do the aspects get reversed in case of retrograde? So if you reverse the aspects 5, 7, and 9, you again get 3, 7, and 11. This is the reason. There is no other reason.
So it's 5 and 5th and 9th only, not there's no third
it's 5th
aspect.
and 9th. It's 5th and 9th. But if you reverse it, you just reverse the aspect.
Yeah, then it's again 5th and 9th.
Yeah. So ultimately, it's this is actually a Nadi technique which has now got integrated into Jyotish. Okay, but Parashara says, because we have to follow what we are always following what Parashara says. Okay, so Parashara says it's 5th and 9th, the same as Jupiter, because Rahu is always imitating Jupiter. Okay, Rahu wants to be Jupiter. And even if you look at the BPHS, when Parashara measures the intelligence of the planets, he says that only 3 planets are very intelligent. The most intelligent planet is Jupiter, then there is the Sun, and finally there is Rahu. So he considers these 3 planets as the most intelligent. Okay, and Rahu is always trying to imitate Jupiter. All right. So now, regarding the analysis of a horoscope, okay, it whenever an analysis of the horoscope is made, it will require a thorough understanding of the nature of the planets. Okay, and it is only the astrologer who has a good understanding of the nature of the planets. Okay, only if the astrologer understands why a planet behaves in a certain way in a certain house, only then the good or bad results for the native can be predicted with accuracy. Okay, so this what I'm trying to do is that we are trying to venture into the predictive part of astrology. Okay, but before we do that, okay, before we actually we actually jump into the ocean, we have to master the principles that have been given by Parashara. Okay, all the planets, okay, they will have some benevolent aspect, some malevolent aspect. It will hold true for the benefic planets as well. It will hold true for the malefic planets as well. Okay, and when I say benefic or malefic, planets are benefic or malefic by nature, or they become benefic or malefic depending upon the nature of the depending upon the ascendant. All right, they are just a minute. There's some power fluctuation. Okay. So what I was saying is that planets may be benefic or malefic by nature, or they become benefic and malefic depending upon the ascendant. Okay, and both benefic and malefic planets, they produce the results when the dashas are in operation. All right. So the dasha is a time period of a planet that help the astrologer to time any kind of event in the life of a native. Okay. Now, when I speak of dashas, there are actually, at least two dashas that the astrologer must know. Okay. Vimshottari dasha is the most popular form of dasha. Okay. Vimshottari dasha, it starts from the moon. It starts from the, it starts from the nakshatra where the moon is placed in the birth chart. That is the Vimshottari dasha. And then there are other forms of dasha like the Sudarshan Chakra dasha, the Narayan dasha, the Udu dasha, the Naisargika dasha, the Chara dasha. Okay. So in my opinion, apart from the Vimshottari dasha, there must be another dasha with which the astrologer must be very, very well versed with, because then you can actually cross check the timings. Okay, whether whether whatever you have calculated regarding the timing of an event, that is correct or not. Okay, so dashas are are time periods of a planet that will help you to time an event. All right. And the nature of various planets is determined on the on the basis of standard astrological principles which are mentioned in the BPHS. Okay, and the point being, whenever we speak of malefic and benefic planets by nature, okay, planets may be malefic or benefic depending on what they stand for. Okay, for example, as I said, Jupiter is the biggest benefic. Okay, then comes Venus, then comes the waxing moon. Okay, and whatever was repeated in whatever was done in the last class, and finally unafflicted Mercury. If Mercury is associated with benefics, okay, Mercury associating with the sun or Jupiter or Venus or the waxing moon, it becomes a benefic. All right. Similarly, I had mentioned that Mars is the biggest malefic. Okay. Then there's Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, and finally the sun. So the sun is not really a malefic; it is a Krura Graha. Okay, and then the waning moon also becomes a malefic, and afflicted Mercury. If Mercury is afflicted by, if Mercury is afflicted by malefics like Saturn and Rahu, it also becomes a malefic. Okay, and the moon and Mercury, because the moon and Mercury, they fall in the category of both malefic and benefic planets. So what it means is that they are naturally weak planets. Okay, they are naturally weak planets, and the moon is a very mild planet. Okay, the moon is a very mild planet. It has no enemies of its own, but it will behave like a malefic when it gets too close to the sun. Okay, and the moon will get too close to the sun only during Amavasya. Yes, it will get very, very close to the sun during Amavasya, and some people will say that the moon gets combust. It does not get combust. Okay, it does not get combust, but there is a condition which is known as Chandra Samagam. Okay, there is a condition which is known as Chandra Samagam. Chandra Samagam means there are, a condition where a lot of planets are very closely linked with the moon. Okay, for example, suppose the moon is in 15 degrees, and then you have Mars in 16 degrees and Venus in 14 degrees. So they are very, very closely associated with the moon, or very, very closely connected to the moon. So that is known as Chandra Samagam. So in that case, what will happen is that the moon starts behaving like a retrograde moon. Okay, I'll cover this phenomenon more in the in the class on retrograde. So that will require a master class basically. Okay, and Mercury, as I said, it gets influenced very easily, because why? Mercury is the bastard child of the moon. Okay, Mercury is the bastard child of the moon, and just like the moon, it also gets influenced very, very easily. Okay, so it behaves like a benefic under benefic influence, and it becomes a malefic under malefic influence. Okay, and Rahu and Ketu, they are also very, very malefics, but then what happens is Rahu and Ketu can behave as benefics if they are placed in the signs of Jupiter and Mercury. Okay, so remember this principle. If Rahu and Ketu are placed in the signs of Jupiter or Mercury, then they can, behave as benefics. Okay, Rahu placed in the signs of Mercury can become a benefic. Ketu placed in the signs of Jupiter can become a benefic. Okay, just remember this principle. Now, as I said, benefics and malefics can also be categorized according to the different lagnas. Okay, so what Parashara says is that planets behave as benefics and malefics depending on the houses that they own. Okay, and the ownership would vary naturally from one lagna to the other. Okay, that means for a given lagna, certain planets will behave as benefics while others will behave as malefics or neutrals. Okay, and this this behavior will be independent of their inherent nature. Okay, for example, say for Capricorn lagna, what happens is that Jupiter, it becomes the third lord and the 12th lord. So it becomes a malefic for that lagna, although Jupiter is benefic. Okay, although Jupiter is very, very benefic, for Capricorn lagna, it becomes a malefic. Similarly, for Capricorn lagna, Saturn as the lord of the first and the second house, it becomes a benefic, although Saturn is a natural malefic. Okay, so what it means is that the planets are subservient to the lagna. All right, so as as I discussed, as I said in this example, a benefic may assume the role of a malefic and vice versa. Okay, so these are the principles that I'll be discussing. Okay, I'll not I don't have any notes to give out, but what you can do is that maybe you can go through the recordings once it is available, and and just write down the principles. Okay, so number one, the first principle: if a natural benefic is the lord of a Kendra house, if a natural benefic is the lord of a Kendra house, the beneficence of that planet is reduced. Okay, this is a surprising principle that Parashara says. If a natural benefic is the lord of a Kendra house, the benefic nature of that planet gets reduced. Okay, for example, say for for Aries ascendant. Okay, for Aries ascendant, the fourth house is ruled by the moon. Okay, the fourth house is ruled by the moon. What happens is that the moon stops giving benefic results to that ascendant. The seventh house is ruled by Venus. Then Venus stops giving good results for that ascendant. Okay. Conversely, if a natural malefic rules the Kendra house, it gives up its malefic nature. Again, take an example of the Capricorn ascendant. For Capricorn ascendant, Mars rules the fourth house, right? So Mars becomes less malefic for a Capricorn ascendant. All right. Again, why does this happen? Okay, why does this happen? Because the lordship of the Kendra houses will have a neutralizing effect on the nature of the planets. That is what Parashara is saying. Okay, the lordship of the Kendra houses, and the Kendra houses, of course, are known as quadrants. They will have a neutralizing influence on the nature of the planets. So what happens is that the natural benefics lose the capacity to give benefic results, and the natural malefics lose the capacity to do harm. Okay, But note that, if a benefic, okay, if a benefic owns a Kendra, for example, Venus owns the 7th house in case of Aries ascendant, it does not become a malefic. It only loses its benefic quality. Okay. Similarly, for Capricorn ascendant, Mars rules the 4th house. So Mars does not become a benefic. It only, it only loses its ability to become malefic. Okay. So this is something that you must remember. All right. The second principle is that the Lord of the Tricorn, okay, that means the 1st, 5th, and the 9th house will always be benefic. Okay, will always be benefic. The Lord of the Tricorn will always be benefic. No matter what planet it will always be benefic. Okay, the Lord of the Tricorn, the 1st, 5th, and the 9th houses, the planets lording the 1st, 5th, and 9th houses will always be benefic, no matter what their nature is. Okay, so this brings us to the conclusion that the Lord of the Lagna is the most auspicious planet. Okay, for example, for Aquarius Lagna, Saturn rules the ascendant. For Capricorn Lagna, Saturn rules the ascendant. So although Saturn is a very malefic planet, it will still be the most benefic planet for that native. Okay. Similarly, for Aries Lagna, for Scorpio Lagna, Mars rules the Lagna. Okay, although Mars is the deadliest malefic, but Mars becomes highly benefic for those, for those ascendants. All right. Then the lords of the 3rd, 6th, and 11th houses are always malefic. Okay, the lords of the 3rd, 6th, and 11th houses are always malefic. Remember this: 3rd house, 6th house, and 11th house. Particularly the 11th house, because 11th house is, these are the these are the Shadaya houses. Okay, these are the Shadaya houses. The word that Parashara uses is Shadaya. Okay, Shadaya. Shadaya means a dangerous house, a dangerous place. So 3rd, 6th, and 11th, the 3 houses together are known as the Trishadhaya. Okay, they are known as together they are known as Trishadhaya. And 11th house is the highest malefic. The Lord of the 11th house is the highest malefic. No matter who it is, it could be Jupiter, it could be Venus. No matter who it is, the 11th Lord is always malefic. Okay, this is the villain of the chart. All right, the 11th Lord is the villain of the chart. And anytime you go through the 11th Lord Dasha, you will see the health will always go for a toss. It will always go for a toss. Okay, anytime you are going through 11th Lord Dasha, it will always go through for a toss. And any planet which is placed in the 11th house, okay, any planet which is placed in the 11th house will give you money. Okay, it will give you money, it will give you wealth, but that wealth will come at the cost of your health. Okay, it will not be some easy kind of money that is flowing in. It will come at the cost of your health. All right. Now, the lords of the 2nd, 12th, and 8th houses will behave as neutrals. Okay, the 2nd, 12th, and the 8th houses will behave as neutrals. Okay, and these lords will give results according to their association. Okay, so 8th lord is a bit surprising, I suppose, for everyone, because a lot of bad things have been said about the 8th lord. But what happens is that this 8th lord is, it is not evil, but it will cause problems wherever it goes. Okay, the 8th lord is not evil. All right, I have a video on the mystical 8th house where I've shown how the 8th lord can be both good and bad. The 8th lord is not an evil like the 11th lord, but the 8th lord will cause problems wherever it goes. Okay. So these are the principles. Okay, then we come to the second category of principles. Okay, so when you look at a horoscope, the horoscope is always divided into 4 groups. Okay, the first group is the Kendra, which are also known as the Vishnu Sthan. The second groups are the quadrants, which are known as the Lakshmi Sthan. Then we have the 3, 6, 11 group. Okay, so these are the this is the group of evil. Okay, this is the group of evil. Then we have the neutral group of 2, 8, and 12. Okay, 2, 8, and 12. All right. Now coming to the Kendras. Okay, coming to the Kendras, all the Kendra houses are not, are not equally powerful. Okay, the fourth house, is more powerful than the first house. The seventh house or the seventh lord is more powerful than the fourth lord, and the 10th lord is more powerful than the seventh lord. Okay, so remember this, the Kendras are not equally powerful. First house is the weakest Kendra. The first lord is the weakest lord of all the Kendra lords. The fourth lord is more powerful than the first lord. The seventh lord is more powerful than the fourth lord. And the 10th lord is more powerful than the seventh lord. That means what? That means the 10th house is the most powerful Kendra. Okay. The 10th house is the most powerful Kendra. Okay. And the Kendra houses are known as the houses of intelligence. Okay. The Kendra houses are known as the houses of intelligence. These are the houses, if you look at the first house, the Lagna, it is known as the, the Lagna is our ability of discernment. Okay. The ability to discriminate between good and bad. Okay. And this is the house where Jupiter gets exalted. Okay. Not exalted, basically. This is the house where Jupiter gets Digbala, the directional strength. So the Kendra houses are also known as Thi Shaktis. Okay, they are known as Thi. Thi means intelligence, right? The first house is known as Thi. The second house is known as Shuddhi. The seventh house is known as Vriddhi. The 10th house is known as Siddhi. Okay, the first house is known as Thi, which is intelligence. The second house is the house of purity. That is the reason it is known as Shuddhi. The 7th house is the house of increase. Okay, when the spouse comes to your life, your family expands. That is the reason the 7th house is known as Vriddhi. And the 10th house is the house of Siddhis. That means the ability to accomplish difficult tasks. That is the reason I always say that the 10th house is always the house of completion. The house of, how you complete work. It is not related in any way to your career, which is generally seen by most Vedic astrologers. Okay. It is the fourth house. Okay, it is the fourth house. That is the house of purity. Then out of the Kendra house, out of the Trikona houses, the fifth lord is always powerful than the Lagna lord, while the ninth lord is more powerful than the fifth lord. That means the ninth lord, okay, the ninth lord is the most powerful planet in the entire birth chart. Okay, just like the 11th lord is the most malefic planet in the birth chart, the ninth lord is the most benefic planet in the birth chart, and no matter who it is. All right. Now coming to the evil group. Okay, coming to the evil group. Sixth lord is more powerful than the third lord, while the 11th lord is more powerful than the sixth lord. Okay, and then coming to the neutral group, the 12th lord is more powerful than the second lord. Okay, that is the reason you always have more expenses than than income. All right, so this is a issue with everyone. Okay, you may say that maybe Ambani does not have as much, Ambani has more income than us, than me, or than the people around me, but what happens is that his expenses are also that much. Okay, then the 8th lord is more powerful than the 12th lord. Okay, so the 8th lord is the most neutral planet in the in the horoscope. All right, now the point being, the 8th lord, coming to the 8th lord. Okay, this 8th lord, as I say, it has a special ability to cause problems. Okay, it has a special ability to cause problems. Why? Because this 8th house, it represents obstructions, it represents obstacles, failures, it represents ailments. Okay, it represents intrigues. That means all the office politics that you find yourself trapped in, it comes from the 8th house. All right, so why does 8th lord is problematic? Okay, because see, 12th from any house is the 12th from any house is the house of loss. Okay, just like 12th from the Lagna, is the loss of intelligence, is the loss of buddhi. Okay. By the way, I forgot, the lagna is also known as buddhi. Okay, it is also known as, not apart from being known as thi, just thi, it is also known as buddhi. Okay, so this lagna, the 12th from the lagna, is the loss of buddhi. So similarly, the 9th house is the house of dharma. Okay, the 9th house is the house of dharma. So 12th from the 9th house is the 8th house. So this 8th house is the house of adharma. Okay, so adharma is always problematic. Okay, no matter what you do, if you are not following your dharma, okay, now dharma has nothing to do with, dharma has nothing to do with religion. It means dharma. Okay, that which holds you. All right, that which holds you. So the opposite of that which holds you is that which makes you fall. Right? In whatever you are good at, that is your dharma. Okay, what is the dharma of sugar? It is to become sweet. What if, what if sugar starts giving a salty taste? It means it is committing a dharma. Similarly, find out whatever you are, find out whatever you are good at, and then find a way to do that. That is dharma. Okay, we have these four principles of Hinduism. We have dharma, we have kama, yes, we have artha, and we have moksha. Okay, now these four principles are never understood by anyone. When I speak of dharma, I'm just digressing a bit, because it's very important to understand these four principles before we actually start understanding jyotish. Okay, so when we speak about dharma, everything starts from kama. Okay, kama means desire. Okay, kama, it means desire. And most of the people will tell you that desire is bad. Okay, most of the people will tell you that desire is bad. Don't desire this, don't desire too much, don't desire this much. Yes, most of the people, you might have heard your parents tell you that desire is bad. There might be someone, who, there might be people around here who have told your children that, okay, desire is bad. Okay, but desire is the seed of creation. You were born out of a desire. Okay, understand this. You were born out of a desire, right? Your parents desired you to be born in this world. So desire is not bad. And leave other religions, but Hindu religion gives very, very important, it gives a lot of importance to desire. That is the reason we have Kameshwari. Yes, goddess Tripura Sundari. She is known as Mahakameshwari. Yes, she is the goddess of desire. So out of that desire comes the need to do your thing in this world. Yes, out of that desire comes your purpose, what you are good at, right? There is a certain purpose that you must fulfill in this world, and that purpose is dharma. Okay, that purpose is dharma. Okay, then comes artha. Again, there would be people who would say money is bad. There would be gurus who would be advising their followers that money is bad, but those are the same gurus who would be roaming all around the place in their Rolls Royce. Have you seen those gurus? Yes, don't desire much, don't desire this, don't desire that, but they are the same people who will be roaming around in their Mercedes, in their Audis, in their BMWs, in their Bentos. Okay, so artha is a way to fulfill your dharma. Okay, artha is a way to fulfill your desires, and these are connected. Okay, only if you have money, only then you can fulfill desires, isn't it? All those wild desires, right? If you don't have money, you cannot fulfill your desire. You may have a desire to go to America, but if you don't have money to pay for the flight tickets, if you don't have money to sustain yourself in the US, you'll not be able to fulfill your desire. Okay, so what happens is that money is very, very essential to fulfill your desire. Okay, money is very, very essential to fulfill your dharma. For example, you may feel that your dharma is to serve the poor and the needy and the homeless. If you don't have money, how can you serve? You may feel that your desire is to provide free food to all. You have a desire to provide free food to all. You have a desire to make this world, hunger free. Right? So you may take that up as your dharma. But what happens if you don't have the money? Leave making the world hunger free, you will be in hunger. Okay, so Artha is very much related to Kama as well as Dharma. And then comes Moksha. What is Moksha? People say Moksha is the absence of desire. No, it is not the absence of desire. Because you say, I want moksha. When I say I want moksha, okay, when I say I want moksha, what it means is that it is still a desire. You want moksha. It's not yet come. You want it. So you're working towards it. So you're still fulfilling a desire. And the desire is for moksha, right? Moksha literally means absence of birth and death. Okay. Moksha literally means absence of birth and death. For example, what happens is people, there are gurus who will say, birth and death is a problem. Why you should be born, why you should die. That is not a problem. That is a natural cycle of the world. Okay, that is a natural cycle of the world. So moksha simply means absence from birth and death. And how do you become absent from birth and death? You become immortal. That is moksha. Okay, you become immortal. No guru will tell you that because they themselves don't know. Okay, they themselves don't know that moksha is immortality. All right, yoga says that moksha is immortality. You end this cycle of coming to this earth, getting married, doing this, doing that, and again getting old, getting diseases, and getting die. You're simply ending this cycle. Okay, so the only way to end this cycle is to become immortal. That is moksha, nothing else. Okay, so coming back, this eighth lord is the absence of dharma. It is that which corrodes your dharma. Okay, and every time your dharma is corroded, okay, your dharma is you ignore your dharma, okay, you will be in trouble. So eighth lord is the biggest problem monger. Okay, eighth lord is the biggest problem monger. Okay, and ninth lord is also the house of fortune. Okay, ninth lord is the house of fortune, ninth lord is the house of bhagya. So the eighth lord is the loss of fortune, is the loss of bhagya. Now what happens if the eighth lord is also the lagna lord? For Aries, the lagna lord is also the eighth lord, isn't it? In that case, what happens is that Mars will behave more as the lagna lord than the eighth lord. Okay, Mars will behave more like the lagna lord than the eighth lord. All right. And suppose the eighth lord is is also the lord of the third house or the 11th house, then it will become more malefic. Okay, if the eighth lord is lording the third house or the 11th house, it will become more more malefic. Okay, for example, you can take the different ascendants and see. For example, if for Pisces ascendant, look at Pisces ascendant, what happens? Venus rules the third house as well as the eighth house. So this is it will behave as a malefic for that ascendant. For Virgo ascendant, Mars is the lord of the third house and the eighth house. So Mars is bad. For Taurus ascendant, Jupiter is the lord of the eighth house and the 11th house. So Jupiter is very adverse. For Scorpio ascendant, for Scorpio ascendant, Mercury is the lord of the 8th house and the 11th house. So Mercury becomes a bad planet. Okay. Now what happens if the 8th lord is also the lord of a tricone? In that case, it becomes a benefic. Okay. For example, for Leo ascendant and for Leo ascendant, Jupiter owns the 5th and the 8th house, so it will become a benefic. For Aquarius ascendant, Mercury owns the 5th and the 8th house, it will become a benefic. Okay. For Gemini ascendant, Saturn is the lord of the 8th house as well as the 9th house, so it will behave more as the 9th lord. Okay, it will behave more as the 9th lord, but it will not give 100% benefic results. It will give mixed results. Okay. Now this is a very important thing to understand. Okay, two ascendants which are very special. Number one is the Scorpio ascendant, is the Sagittarius ascendant, and number two is the Capricorn ascendant. Okay, these two are very special ascendants. Why? Because for these two ascendants, the sun and the moon become the 8th lord. Okay, For Sagittarius ascendant, count from for Sagittarius, moon becomes the 8th lord. For Capricorn ascendant, sun becomes the 8th lord. Now these 8 lords, sun and moon will never behave as the 8 lords. Okay, they will become neutrals. All right, they will become neutrals. For that is, because parents can never be problematic for their children. Okay, parents can cause obstacles in the way of their children. That is a different thing. But at the end of the day, parents can never become problematic for their children. All right. So what happens is for these two ascendants, for Capricorn as well as for Sagittarius ascendants, sun and the moon, they never become the, they don't behave as the 8 lords. What happens instead is that the solution is provided by Gemini. Okay, so please remember this. What happens instead is that 8th from the 8th lord, that is the 3rd lord, behaves as the 8th lord for these ascendants. So look at Sagittarius ascendant. Look at Sagittarius ascendant. The 3rd lord is the 3rd house is ruled by Saturn. So Saturn will behave as the 8th lord. For Capricorn ascendants, Jupiter rules the 3rd house. So Jupiter will behave as the 8th lord rather than the sun. So it is as if the sun and the moon, they are saying that no, I don't want to harm this ascendant because it's my child. So I am delegating it to somewhere else. Okay, I'm delegating it to some other planet to behave as the 8th lord. So remember this principle. Okay, it is not written anywhere. It's a Gemini Sutra. All right. Anyways. Now there is a term for a planet which is known as Raja Yoga Karaka. Okay, nowadays they only call it as Yoga Karaka. Yoga Karaka is a special and important planet which gives a lot of beneficial results. Okay, so a planet becomes a Yoga Karaka if it owns a quadrant and a trine simultaneously. Okay, that means if it is a simultaneous owner of a Kendra and a tricone, then it becomes a Yoga Karaka. For example, for Capricorn ascendant, you look at Capricorn ascendant, Venus is the owner of the 5th house. Venus is also the owner of the 10th house. Okay, so it becomes a Yoga Karaka. Okay, so and such a planet, if it is placed in a Kendra house or a tricone house, then only it will give its good effects. Okay, if a Yoga Karaka goes into a bad house, say the 6th house or the 8th house or the 12th house, then it will not behave as a Yoga Karaka. Okay, many people come and ask me that I'm running the dasha of my Yoga Karaka, but I'm not getting good results. Okay, in that case, what happens is you are just look at where the Yoga Karaka is placed. If it is not placed in the Kendra or Trikona, it will not be able to give you powerful results. Okay, so the Yoga Karaka is naturally active in the chart. You don't have to do anything extra to activate the Yoga Karaka. Most of the planets will say that if you wear the gemstone of the Yoga Karaka, it's very, very lucky for you. It does not work that way. Okay, it does not work that way. All right. But then how does a Yoga Karaka behave if it is a natural malefic? For example, you look at Taurus ascendant, Saturn becomes the Yoga Karaka, but Saturn is a malefic. So what happens is that the native has to go through a lot of obstacles or through a lot of stressful situations to finally achieve his or her destiny. Okay, Saturn will eventually do good, but it will do good in a very malefic way. Maybe after causing a lot of losses to the native, maybe after causing a lot of hardships to the native in that way. Okay, similarly, the people represented by the Yoga Karaka planet will also prove to be very, very lucky for the native. Okay, for example, if Venus is the Yoga Karaka for a Capricorn ascendant, then all the females, maybe the spouse, maybe the girlfriend, all right, maybe the daughter, that those people will be very, very lucky for the native. Similarly, if Saturn becomes the Yoga Karaka, then all the people who work under the native or servants, okay, or people from the lower hierarchy, they will, they will be very, very benefic, or they will be very, very beneficial for the native. Okay, so you have to understand how this Yoga Karaka phenomenon works. Okay, it is always active. Don't go for advice if someone is telling you that you need to activate the Yoga Karaka planet. No. All right. So what happens is that for Cancer ascendant, Mars becomes the Yoga Karaka. For Leo ascendant, Mars becomes the Yoga Karaka. For Capricorn and Aquarius ascendants, Venus becomes the Yoga Karaka. For Taurus and Libra ascendants, Saturn becomes the Yoga Karaka. Okay. So this Yoga Karaka phenomenon, this Yoga Karaka principle is not available to all ascendants. It is only available to 6 ascendants: Cancer, Leo, Capricorn, Aquarius, Taurus, and Libra. Okay. Other ascendants will not have a yoga karaka. All right. Again, as I said, the ownership of a trine, that means the ownership of a trikone, will convert a malefic into a benefic. Okay. But the ownership of a quadrant will not convert a benefic into a malefic or a malefic into a benefic. So this is something that I had mentioned before as well. Okay. For example, say, take Aries ascendant. Okay. Take Aries ascendant and consider Saturn. So for Aries ascendant, Saturn rules the 11th and the 10th house. Okay. And for Scorpio ascendant, Saturn rules the 3rd and the 4th house. And, for Leo ascendant, it rules the 6th and the 7th house. So what happens is that although it rules a Kendra, okay, it also rules a bad house, right? It also rules the evil houses, right? Again, for Aries ascendant, as I said, Saturn rules the 10th and the 11th house. 11th house is evil. For Scorpio ascendant, Saturn rules the 3rd and the 4th house. 3rd house is evil. For Leo ascendant, Saturn rules the 7th and the 3rd house. 3rd house is evil. So because Saturn is a ruler of the evil houses, so Saturn will always become a malefic for these ascendants. Okay, despite owning a Kendra house. All right. Then we have the principle of Raj Yoga. Okay, so Raj Yoga is formed when the lord of a quadrant is in some way related to the lord of a trine. Okay, if the lord of a quadrant is associating with the lord of a, if the lord of a Kendra is associating with the lord of a trikone, then a Raj Yoga is formed. Okay, so Raj Yogas particularly, they neutralize all the bad conditions that are present in the chart, but they are also very good for keeping the native disease free. Okay, for keeping the native disease free, Raj Yogas are very, very important. Anytime the lord of a quadrant is related to the lord of a trine, okay, in any native, a Raj Yoga is formed. But then the Raj Yoga will fructify only if that association is being formed in a benefic house. That means only if that association is formed in a in a Kendra or in a trine. All right. For example, say again, Capricorn ascendant. Mars is the lord of a quadrant, Venus is the lord of a trine. So if these two are associating, although people say that Mars and Venus association is bad, but suppose these two are associating in a Kendra house or in a trine house, it is a huge Raj Yoga for the native. Okay, and associations can happen by means of conjunction, by means of mutual aspect. Mutual aspect means, that means both planets must aspect each other. Only one aspect is not a mutual aspect. Okay, and then there is another Raj Yoga which is caused by Parivartan. Okay, Parivartan is also a very powerful Raj Yoga. All right. Parivartan is a case when the lord of one house is exchanged with the lord of the other house. For example, Scorpio ascendant, right? The 12th house is ruled by Jupiter. The 12th house is ruled by Venus. The second house is ruled by Jupiter. So if Venus is placed in the second house and Jupiter is placed in the 12th house, then it becomes a Parivartan Yoga. Okay, I hope I'm being clear with the example. Again, Scorpio ascendant, right? The 12th house is ruled by Venus. The second house is ruled by Jupiter. Now, if Jupiter is placed in the 12th house and Venus is placed in the second house, it becomes a case of Parivartan Yoga. All right. So, this is how Parivartan works. Now, a Raj Yoga will also not fructify if the lords of the quadrants and the trines are also owners of the evil houses. Okay. If the lords of the quadrants and the trines are also owners of evil houses, then the Raj Yoga will not fructify. Okay. Now there are principles related to Rahu and Ketu. Is there Nakshatra Parivartan Yoga? Yes, there is. There is. Okay, there is. For example, say Venus. Suppose, let's say Venus is placed in Pushya Nakshatra and Saturn is placed in, say, Purva Shadha Nakshatra. Okay, so Venus is placed in the nakshatra of Saturn, Saturn is placed in the nakshatra of Venus. That is a parivartan. That is a nakshatra parivartan. Okay, so that is how it works. Then we have principles related to Rahu and Ketu. So Rahu and Ketu, they will give results according to the house where they are located and according to the planet. That means the lord of the house with whom they join. Okay. Now, funny thing is that Rahu and Ketu can also become Yoga Karakas. Okay. How they can become Yoga Karakas? If they are placed in a Kendra and are joined by a Trikon Lord. So these two conditions have to happen simultaneously. Okay, for Rahu and Ketu to behave as Yoga Karakas, they have to be placed in a quadrant and be joined by a, they have to be placed in a Kendra and they have to be joined by a Trikon Lord. Okay. Similarly, they become a Yoga Karaka if they are placed in a, if they are placed in a Trikon, if they are placed in a Trikon house and are joined by a Kendra Lord. Okay, so these are the two conditions when Rahu and Ketu will behave as Yoga Karakas. So it's not all gloom and doom when, when it comes to Rahu and Ketu. Okay, then we have bhavas which are known as Trik Bhava, Trika. That is, the word is Trika. Trika means difficult bhavas. So the houses 6, 8, and 12 are known as Trika Bhavas. Okay, and these are the difficult houses. Why? Because the sun sets in these houses. The sun is not visible from these houses. That is the reason it becomes difficult. In my place, we have been having rain since the last 5 and 6 days, 5 to 6 days without, without any visibility of the sun. And people have started getting depressed. That is how important the sun, that is how important a role sun plays in our daily lives. Okay. So the Trikabhavas are those, where the sun sets. So 6, 8, and 12. These are the houses where the sun is not visible at all. Okay. These are the houses where the sun is not visible at all. So they are known as Trikabhavas, and they are also known as Dushtanas. The Karaka for these houses is Saturn. All right. So these houses, they are, they will almost always give adverse results. Okay. And these adverse results are mainly with relation to health. Okay. For example, the 6th lord and the 6th house will indicate diseases and accidents. The 8th house and the 8th lord will indicate chronic diseases, incurable diseases, and also death. Okay. The 12th house and the 12th lord indicate suffering and also hospitalization. Okay. So if you are timing illness, okay, or if you're trying to time the operation of a surgery, if you're trying to time time any operation or surgery, it is very important that that you keep a good watch on the 6th, 8th, and the 12th lords and their associations. Okay. So this is it for today. Okay, I have certain works with my Guruji, so that is the reason I had to prepone this class. Any questions from anyone? All right then. So we don't have any questions coming in. Anyways, you have questions? Okay, we don't. All right. All right then. See you all guys next Sunday, and thank you very much for joining in. And I look forward to your association next Sunday. Please go through the recordings. They should be available by tomorrow, or even latest by tonight, if that is possible for upload. I'll see you guys on next Sunday. Okay. Thank you so much. Om Gurave Namaha. Yes, it is lots to absorb, obviously. When we go through the principles, these are predictive principles. Okay. And no one actually stresses on these principles. We are always, we are always into predictions. What Saturn will do. Oh my God, Mars is so malefic. Will I have property? What this will do, what that will do. But first we have to go through the principles. Okay. Principles are extremely, extremely important. Because if your principles are strong, then your foundations become strong. And once your foundations become strong, then your predictions will be, will be very, very accurate. Okay. And for predictions, you also need a bit of intuition. Okay. And how to check if you have that intuition, your Ketu will be in a fire sign, either in the Rashi or in the Navamsha or in the both. Okay. If you have if you are actually intuitive, that is the biggest, that is the biggest proof of your intuition. Your Ketu has to be will be in a fire sign. Okay. And even if you don't have it in a fire sign, then there is also nothing to worry. It can be improved by certain yogic practices, which we'll be discussing in the days to come. Okay. All right, then. Thank you so much. I look forward to your association next Sunday as well. All right. Thank you, Anuradha ji. Thank you, Dhanuji. Thank you, Nikita ji. And thank you, Uday ji. I'll see you soon. Namaste.